Hey, what's up everyone? My name is CollegeSportsREVIVED and I welcome you back to the College Hoops 2K Legacy Mode series featuring the Fordham Rams and Coach Carter. And man, I'm excited to finally hop back into it with you guys today. A quick channel update since it's been so long. I think this Legacy Mode is going to be the only series on the channel for a while. I just don't have enough time to support multiple series right now. Plus, I ran into a game-breaking glitch in the Seattle Seahawks rebuild that sent my save file straight to the NFL draft, so that kind of already ruins that series. But I was already thinking of ending it anyways because the views aren't there. This is a more popular series and I just have more enjoyment doing basketball content for the time being. But I will be making a series on the new college football game when that drops next summer. I want to continue to work on my football content to make sure I'm prepared for that more than I was for the Seattle Seahawks series. But I'm working upwards of 50 hours a week right now, and I just don't think more than one series is realistic for the time being. I'm already having trouble closing the Road to NBA 2K series, which I promise will come very soon. However, College Hoops 2K Legacy Mode action is always here to stay, and I promise to prioritize it over everything else on the channel, especially at the moment. But with that said, I think it's time we finally hop in, as today marks the second off-season of this Fordham series. With some modest improvement throughout the second year of Coach Carter's Ram tenure, 7 more wins overall compared to Season 1, 2 extra conference wins, and an A-10 playoff berth for the first time in this series. We gave St. Joe's a run for their money in the first round, but we were shorthanded. Our second leading scorer, Evangelo Higgins, missed the final few weeks of the season with a broken ankle. But with this core coming together at the end of Season 2 in a big way, I think a positive all-season today could perhaps set things up for big things in Season 3. Perhaps our first winning season. That seems like a pretty realistic goal, especially if we hit on some of these recruits, but we'll get to all that later on. As you all know, I like to open up our off-season videos with the player recaps of our team, kind of like a time capsule to see where the players have come from and where they're headed. As we start off with the coveted point guard Preston Murphy, who made the switch from the 2-guard spot over the previous offseason due to our lack of point guard depth, and I have to say, I was very impressed. He easily paced us in points, assists, steals, and made huge improvements on the defensive side of the floor, overcoming a big shooting slump to begin this year. And that's all said and done with playing a brand new position as well. And after Higgins broke his ankle, Murphy turned up his production a notch. Down the stretch, we gave him, and another player who we'll be naming later, the keys to the offense when Higgins checked out, and Murphy responded by going on fire down the stretch. Our number one prospect in our recruiting class is a 4-star point guard named Kai Hendry, and depending on what his ratings are, Preston might move back to the 2 for his senior season, but overall I think the season at point guard was very important in his development as it forced Murph to round out his game. I'm very happy where his game's at right now. Evangelo Higgins was the 2-guard this season, a spot we wanted him at after Season 1. He played both small forward and shooting guard in Season 1, but he looked a lot more comfortable at the 2-guard. He's very good at using his length to beat smaller defenders, so Murphy's move to point guard definitely benefited him as well, as Evo improved on his numbers pretty much across the board, running with the backcourt with Murphy. His stat line on his junior year doesn't look as impressive as it did mid-season, as Higgins battled a minor ankle injury for a couple weeks before breaking it with only a couple games to go, and that kind of dropped his stats a little bit. So hopefully that isn't a recurring thing, because that ankle has really become a problem for him a little bit there in that junior year. Like I said before, if we secure that 4-star point guard, that could really shake up the backcourt next year and send Higgins back to the forward spot where he played last year, and he wasn't as effective at. So between Higgins' ankle injuries and potentially moving back to a position where he's not as comfortable, there's some question marks surrounding Higgins as he takes the floor next season for the final time. Stan Scott is the first of 4 seniors we're going to be saying sayonara to, and he had a pretty meteoric rise to the starting lineup in his career. When we came into Season 1, we liked his base stats. He was a plus defender, had a sky-high motor, and was the best pure athlete we had, but he never played a lot through his first 2 seasons, or maybe 1.5, because up until around 2/3 of the way through Season 1, where he openly stated he was unhappy riding the pine, that's whenever we gave him a shot. I can't say I blame him. He's a kid who wanted to play, and he proved it. I mean, he became one of our best bench players down the stretch of season 1 and impressed Coach Carter so much so that he was given the starting small forward gig heading into season 2. And Stanton backed up the talk again. He cashed in with multiple 3-steal performances, was the first guy to dive on the floor for loose balls, and excelled at scoring on the break because transition defenses straight up couldn't keep up with him. He was that special of an athlete. He was the most consistent shooter we had as well, taking the second most threes on the team while shooting 45% this season. You can't always replace guys like Scott, but he's a lesson to you young ballers out there watching. Your time may take longer to come than others, but keep working hard no matter what, because you never know when your shot will come. Inspiring stuff from the senior out of Newark, New Jersey. At power forward, we had someone who I called our breakout of the year candidate back in season 1's offseason video, and he did not disappoint. Stan Scott and Fabian Swanson were our 2 new starters, and Swanson impressed as well, finishing 3rd on the team in scoring, improving on his efficiency despite taking almost 2 times as many shots as last year. But the biggest stride he made was on the defensive side of the floor. For you guys who have been around this series, you know that Swanson is very polished on offense with a silky smooth post game, and he can easily stretch defensive schemes with his jumper. But there was some major concern on the other side. If Swanson had to be a staple in the lineup, or if he was going to be a staple, he had to work on his defense. And that he did, over a blocking game average on his junior year. But even on the shots he didn't block, he held his own down there. He put on some muscle over the offseason, was competing with Cade Sorensen for rebound champion on the team. And it all came together for Fabian in the first playoff game of the series against St. Joe's last episode. 19 points, with 15 of those coming in the first half, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, and I think he was the best player out on the floor against a very talented team. We hope for him to be a star in his senior year. We have another senior starter who will be losing, leaving a pretty big hole in the paint. Our man in the middle, Cade Sorensen, is graduating and taking his interior presence along with him as well. He's yet another Fordham Ram who made some huge strides in season 2. There wasn't a lot of to Sorensen's game when he came to Fordham last year. What you saw is what you got. He was a junior, a work in progress, blue-collar post player who didn't really have much in his offensive game other than putbacks. This year, however, the progress was there. And in a big way, too. It's another player that Coach Carter got in the gym. You're really starting to see the trend of these guys progressing under Coach Carter as Sorensen became really good in the post, especially with his left hand, and I think Cade, being a southpaw, threw off some interior defenders inside. He shot at his previous career highs in points per game and field goal percentage, and despite not really showing up in the St. Joe's game, Sorensen still ends his Fordham career with a super high note. We have a couple candidates, both on the roster and in recruiting, that could fulfill Sorensen's spot next season in the starting 5. That'll probably be one of the bigger storylines to follow coming into season 3. Onto the bench now. This was a very thin bench overall. The depth on this team is something that kind of held us back a little bit, but that doesn't mean there still isn't some upside here in the second unit. We'll start with Amir Holiday, as he led the bench in minutes played this year. Holiday's the 3rd senior we're going to say goodbye to, as he's another guy who came from the bottom to make something of himself in this series. He was a transfer from a D2 school out in Cali, and for the past 2 years here in the Bronx, he's been one of our best 3-point shooters, capping off his career with a 39% clip from downtown. His numbers didn't jump much from last season like we were hoping, and he kind of stayed a little too one-dimensional for us, but overall Holiday was a smooth West Coast baller who hit some big threes in his career. Freshman point guard Dustin Black saw a steady increase over his first season backing up Murphy, and he had some highs, he had some lows for the first couple weeks, but overall we did want to see more of him. And then the Higgins injury happened, and Dustin Black stepped into the starting 5, and I have to say, the 6'4" guard from Scranton was ready for the occasion. His averages across his line exploded when he joined the starting 5, and it wasn't just because of his volume. Black was just as efficient in the starting 5 as well. In fact, his percentages went up with some big performances such as 12 points on 4 for 6 shooting with 4 assists against St. Joe's in the playoff game. Or his first career start against LaSalle, where he led the team with 16 while adding 3 assists and shooting 7 for 14. He also made half his threes overall in the season, or around that mark. Expect Dustin to be the first guy off the bench next year, or perhaps even being the new starting point guard if we can't secure that 4-star recruit later on in the video. But overall, with the last couple weeks he had, I'm just ecstatic for his progress, and I can't wait to see what he has in terms of his ceiling. Corey Terrell was third in minutes as he wraps up his first year playing D1 action. He was a JUCO transfer, a 3-star, and while he didn't exceed expectations, he didn't fail to reach any either. 3 points and 3 rebounds. He made over half his shots, but what holds Terrell back is his consistency or lack thereof. He was either on or he was off. There was no in between. I remember a couple games when Sorensen got into some foul trouble. Terrell either had some big moments in relief or he had a miserable time in relief. It's hard to say why he experiences these highs and lows, but hey, not everyone can adjust to the D1 speed overnight. But for a junior college guy with only 2 years of eligibility, now with only 1 heading into this next season, we hoped he'd be more ready on a night-to-night basis than that. However, the center spot is up for grabs next year, and Terrell is in good position to take pole position on the job if he puts in the work. And also, he has a lot of muscle, awareness, rim protection, just overall promising skills, and I want to see him do well. Chen Li was another freshman, a 6'7" forward from China. He grew an inch throughout the year, added some muscle. He now stands at 6'8", 246 pounds, really thick build. He's strong inside. And he had some of his own moments as well. He showed that he has a nice touch from mid-range. Perhaps he's been getting in the gym with Fabian Swanson, as his mid-range game improved over his freshman year for sure. He also rebounded better and better over the year. However, he failed to reach 9 minutes a game, and that's a trend that could continue with some new faces pretty much guaranteed in the front court next year. It sucks to say since Chen Li hasn't really done anything wrong. In fact, he added some muscle, and his jumper is pretty intriguing, and his buff frame allows him to draw plenty of free throws. He attempted 34 shots from the line as a result, as a freshman, but he's going to have to work to not get buried in this rotation. KJ Bigsby was the final freshman that saw the floor a bit, and you could tell KJ was amped up to play, almost to a fault though. Bigsby was recruited as a power forward, but with his solid three-point ability and inside scoring, we used the redshirt year last year to polish up his game a little bit. He didn't see the floor much this year until Higgins was ruled out for the season. And we're probably the least deep at our wing spots. That meant Bigsby was finally able to see extended action. He tried to hold his own, but you could tell he needs some seasoning, only making a third of his attempts from the field on the season. Barring any crazy jump in his playmaking or defensive abilities, I just don't see KJ playing a lot next season either, but we'll see how the chips fall with the rotation. Chris Smith is heading into his senior year. He's been a reserve guard for his career. Kasuke Takahashi is our fourth and final senior graduating. Unfortunately, we couldn't develop him into more of just a space eater. And lastly, potentially playing his first minutes of college ball next year is for redshirt freshman Milos Filipovic, who hopefully worked on his playmaking and defense to go along with his nice shooting stroke. Alright, so that wraps up the player recaps. Always a good time going back to seeing how our players did, but now it's time for recapping March Madness, where the number 1 overall seed, Seton Hall, nearly becoming the second number 1 overall seed ever to lose in the first round. And then they'll drop the second round game to Arizona, and Arizona against Fresno State. Already some madness going on here in the East region, where we see Maryland continues to coast, and Arizona will take down the Fresno State Bulldogs by 13. So it's either Arizona or Maryland for our first Final Four participant, and it will be Arizona in a shocking win. So the 9 seed getting it done. Moving down, we have another 1 seed who can't survive the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. This time it's Georgia turning heads, and North Carolina also doing some damage as well as a double-digit seed. Georgia Tech, a multiple-time champion within this series, falls to UNLV, who's dropped 90-plus points in the first 2 rounds, and then an all-time classic there against UNC, but the Runnin' Rebels will continue to roll. So it'll be UNLV, the 2 seed, or the 5 seed, the Texas Longhorns here in the Final Four, and it will be UNLV who once again scrapes by. So they've been playing some very close games here in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. So now in the South region, the third number 1 overall seed is Florida State, who finally shows that a 1 seed can make it past the first weekend. And they do pretty convincingly as well. Even in the Sweet 16, South Carolina stands no chance. But on the south side of the South bracket, we see the Red Raiders handling their business as well, 81-69. So after a lot of upsets, the South is pretty conventional. The 1 versus 2 Florida State versus Texas Tech. And it will be the Seminoles, a basket game, beating Texas Tech, making up for the faltering 1 seeds. And this is another one that just doesn't cut it. How about Charlotte with an A10 matchup against Dayton? They steamrolled everybody in our conference tournament, but against a real team, Duke, they get steamrolled themselves. Vermont with a big upset there in the first round, but just can't cut it, as Southern Utah also gave Duke a game as well there in the first round. But the Dukies will be playing for a Final Four spot. And now we scroll down. How about some Big Ten teams facing off against each other here in March? It'll be the Buckeyes beating the Spartans and then losing to Boston College, as the Eagles were actually the #1 preseason team in the country. They only secure a 3 seed in the tournament and then fall to ACC opponent Duke. So the Blue Devils back in the tournament. We'll see if Coach K can give it one last ride, but it's another ACC opponent they face, and they will fall 71-69. So Florida State makes it out of the one side, and on the other side it'll be UNLV. They stifle Arizona's offense, only allowing 49 points in a pretty big win. So it'll be the 1 seed, the Seminoles, against the 2 seed, the UNLV Running Rebels. So 2 teams we haven't seen in any Final Four, or rather I should say national title game, since we began this series. But you always like to see it, as we start with the favorites, the winners of the ACC in the regular season, the Florida State Seminoles. They were upset on opening night to Manhattan, and they proceeded to not look back or waver. They built a resume as impressive as anybody else around the country, including an 11-2 record against tournament teams and the ACC crown. FSU's had some really good teams over the recent college basketball seasons in real life, and they've built their pedigree with tenacious defense and size. They have both of those on this team, but it's the offensive firepower they possess along with those assets that is setting this Seminole squad over the most before. Over 75 points per game average, being headlined by their 6'10", 253-pound All-American big man, Ramondre Knox. You won't see many college kids stuff this stat sheet like Knox. 18.5 points, 2.5 blocks a game. He joins a 6'8" senior Nolan Sparks in the front court to create a nasty duo inside. Undersized point guard Gilbert Gatson is lightning quick and knows how to get his friends the basketball inside. And make sure to keep an eye on electric wing named Raheem Carter, a 6'7" senior who can embarrass you at the rim. The 2 seed, the UNLV Running Rebels, playing in their first Final Four since the Larry Johnson and Greg Anthony days of the early 90s. Just like FSU, they fell opening night in a shocking loss, but turned things around quickly. Another rough patch would hit the Rebels, however, as the calendar switched over to the new year. The Rebels were hit with 4 straight losses around that time, and the final 3 were how they opened up Mountain West play. But this time they rebounded in literally the best way you can possible. 13 straight conference wins to close the regular season. They steamrolled each conference tournament opponent by at least 19 points apiece, earned a 2 seed, and have survived some of the best games of the tournament against Texas and North Carolina for their first Final Four appearance since 1991. You'll see a very skilled perimeter team with guys at the 1 through the 4 that can handle the ball, hit shots, and find their teammates. Joey Patton is their Iron Man, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 steals on his senior year. But JJ Soto is probably the scariest offensive player on the floor tonight. It's incredible how he stands at 6'9", 260, yet he's just so skilled and polished. And at point guard is number 35, Emmanuel Barger, who paced all players in the Mountain West with just over 5 assists a game on the season. Well, it's finally time we hop in and watch this championship, and watching the tournament final every season with you guys has become tradition in this series, and I really enjoy it, I really do, but we've kind of grown accustomed to watching one-sided blowouts recently over the last couple years. Maybe these 2 clubs can change that this year as Florida State earns the first possession. It's always been a good time. You guys seem to like the CPU versus CPU, and it's going to be a yearly tradition until you guys prove you don't want to see it anymore. It's always a good time to see the national championship, but we're looking for a more competitive game, as it's the All-American candidate Ramondre Knox getting us underway tonight with the first basket for the Seminoles. as the Florida State Seminoles, the 1 seed. Look at that pass right there. That's Ramondre Knox going backdoor again for the first 4 points of the ball game. Florida State is battle tested, 12-2 against the top 25 this year, and they are off to a very nice start. 6 unanswered points, but finally J.J. Soto grabs a board, and the running Rebels start to run a little bit. It's Soto as the trailer on the break, and he cuts the lead in half with just 1 basket. The 6'9 junior, he will knock that one down and knock down 37% of his three-point attempts on the season. But how about the answer? It's Gilbert Gatson, the 5'10 point guard, and then the inbound pass is snatched by Nolan Sparks. Both guys average 10 points a game, Gatson and Sparks. 3 guys on the Seminole roster who average at least double figures. And we'll take a look at UNLV and how they're doing on the offensive end. Still going to get things going. Only 7 points over 5 minutes into the ball game, but no problem there from J.J. Soto. He is, in my opinion, the scariest guy on the floor tonight. 14.5 points for the 6'9 junior and over 1.5 blocks as well. A really talented two-way player. As inside, crashing the glass, it's UNLV on the glass. Steve Shepard, the backup power forward, with his first basket. UNLV is going to need all hands on deck to try to eliminate one of the hottest teams in the country, but don't sleep on UNLV as well with how hot they've been. I talked about their cold stretch in the middle of the season. Nice shot right there by Raheem Carter. But yeah, their cold stretch where they dropped their first 3 conference games, well, they responded with winning the last 13 games of their conference season, sweeping the conference tournament and getting to the Final Four, marking up a 22-game winning streak, 31-5 overall. So do not sleep on how hot this team is as well, but they're down by 6. Make that 8 and possibly 9 as Raheem Carter is on the glass. There's some really talented athletes on this Florida State team, and Raheem Carter is one of them. He's off to a great start as the body language very different on these two sides. Are we going to see another blowout? Well, the Seminoles up by 9 here, but there's a nice screen by Steve Shepard. Let's see if Barger can make anything out of it. Nice assist outside to Joey Patton. The 6'4 senior averages 15 points a game. That's their leading scorer right there. And also grabs 6 rebounds a game despite only standing at 6'4". Really impressive player as Ramondre Knox from the elbow knocks it down. All right, 6 first half points for the 6'10 senior. Florida State finished the final poll 3rd in the country, and they're looking to uphold that here in the Final Four. 3:40 left to go, and they're cruising 27-17. As this one's kicked around to Gilbert Gatson for a 3. That's his 2nd tray ball on the contest, and he's still perfect from downtown. Timeout run the Rebels. They're looking for an answer, but can't find one seemingly on either side of the floor. It's now a 15-point game. Shepard back to Chris Cavett as it's dished around. It's a tough jumper outside, but it's knocked down by Burks as UNLV goes in and out, perhaps needing to do more of that moving forward. That'll trim the lead back down to 10 with only seconds left to play here in the first half. You gotta admit, you gotta consider it a win if you're a running Rebel fan, if they can get it down to 10 before the end of the half. But it'll be a guard-to-guard pick and pop as Raheem Carter makes a nice pass to extend the Seminoles' lead to 13. Wow, and the difference has been from behind the line so far. UNLV is one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, 38% from behind the line, but only 3 for 15 to show for it in the biggest game of their season. They're not even shooting 38% from the floor total, inside and outs. That shows you just how out of sync the Runner Rebels have looked here in the biggest game of the season. 35-22 at the half as Joey Patton begins the second half with the ball in his hands, but it's quickly rotated around. Oh man, what a shot there right out of the gate. Cold-blooded from the 6'5 freshman. Simon Lewis took him 4 shots, but he finally makes good on his 4th from behind the line. And it's 35-25. Nolan Sparks inside as he smokes the layup. Too strong there. Joey Patton, one of the best defensive guards and rebounding guards you'll see, collects his 4th rebound to begin the break. Simon Lewis doing it from the left and the right as the freshie making 2 of the biggest shots of his young career to keep UNLV into it. Joey Patton now wants to find Emmanuel Barger just off the mark as the running Rebels again cannot catch a break. Big rebound there by Nolan Sparks as Emerson Reynolds sets it up, and it'll be Ramondre Knox going backdoor for one of the best three-point plays you'll see all season. A beautiful touch pass to get it inside to the uber athletic wing, and Carter seemingly floating across the key on that one, and he still has the body control to finish it and make the free throw to put it back to 10. Now it's back up to 12 as Gilbert Gatson only stands at 5'10", but he attacks Benny Rams, though he's 6'8", and he still gets to go. Super impressive take there, 50-39, as the Seminoles are back in control with 9 minutes to play, but Chris Cavett, the backup point guard, 5'10" sophomore, he's a sniper, and he makes good on one there. That was a huge shot to cut it back to 8. With 8 minutes left to play, UNLV not out of it just yet, as Joey Patton doing some fancy dribbling, draws 2 defenders his way so he can set up Chris Cavett for three-pointer number 2 in a row. Timeout Florida State, as now it's UNLV enjoying a nice little 8-0 run, but a nice inbounds play to get 2 more right back. It's Carter who has been the X factor today for sure. That's points 9 and 10 for him, as it's yet another flashy assist by Gilbert Gatson, who averages 4.5 dimes on his junior campaign. The Rebels now putting some pressure on the Seminoles. 6:48 left to go as it's Gatson. What a dime going backdoor for a beautiful 5th assist. Look at the wizardry, not even looking at Raheem Carter, just over the shoulder. Gil Gatson gets it done again. What a creative find there as Carter wants to stay hot. No good. Big rebound there by Patton. As rushing the ball up the floor, it's the Rebels looking for the secondary break. Nice pass outside to Shepard, but he makes the extra look to Joey Patton, who finally hits a 3. He was waiting for that one. 11 points now for the 6'4" senior. What do we have here? We have a ball game, everybody. The national championship is getting good, as this one's floated inside, kicking it out. JJ Soto rips it clean from mid-range. Nice look, Benny Ramsdale, as UNLV is doing a much better job going inside and out, as there's a steal. Soto wants the lead, and he has it. 15 on the night for the 6'9" junior, as Florida State feels the pressure now. They've relinquished the lead. They were up 13 at the half, but it has seemingly gone away in a blink of an eye. 2:22 left to go. Ramondre Knox leaves it short. He has been so quiet in the second half. What a find by Joey Patton. Soaring through the lane, JJ Soto, as UNLV continues to live above the rim. Boom! Here comes the pain, says Soto. But here comes the inbound, though. Florida State going quick with 2:10 left to go. They know they have to. Nolan Sparks down the lane. A two-handed flush himself. And maybe some frustration behind this one as well, as he's been way too quiet for his liking. Only 6 points for a guy who is one of the better big men in the ACC. 1:22 left to go as Florida State earns a stop, as they have a chance to retake the lead. It's Carter, who's been hot off the back iron though. The running Rebels are on the move here on this break. It's Patton with some fancy dribbling. He crosses over Raheem Carter and pulls right in the face of some tough interior defense, and he gets it to drop. UNLV up by 6 as Simon Lewis takes away his 5th pass of the game. Emmanuel Barger is fouled as he has a chance to extend it to 2 possessions. As the wheels continue to come off for FSU, what has happened to the Seminoles today? Barger has really struggled though. He's probably the one starter here for UNLV who's just not had it tonight, offensively speaking, as he misses the front end of these 2 shots. He's without a field goal in a game, but he could change that right here, right now. Can he extend it to 2 possessions? Barger gets the friendly bounce. 67-63, Rebels on top as they break the press effectively this time around, but too many turnovers here in the second half. FSU though gets the 2 quick points they need Ramondre Knox inside to Nolan Sparks, two guys who have been a little under expectations tonight. 37 seconds left now. It's about a 10-second difference between shot clock and game clock, so FSU can still play for the stop. It's Barger with 17 to shoot. Patton, way too much space. How can you leave him wide open without hot? He's been here in the second half. Here comes FSU, 22 seconds to go. Knox outside. It's Gatson, the do-it-all man with 3 more. Fouling hard is Nolan Sparks, but those 3 points will leave the door cracked open as Emmanuel Barger makes the first free throw. But this second one is even more important. This will push it to 3 with 16 seconds left. Barger gets it to drop. One last chance for Florida State. Here comes Sparks. Up ahead to Gatson. Feeling confident, but it's off the left iron and out. UNLV holds on to become your national champions. And it felt really good to watch an instant classic in the national championship finally. We've had a couple natties in a row that weren't very competitive, but this one was all as advertised. With the second half comeback led by this year's Final Four's most outstanding player, JJ Soto, 19 points and 3 steals. Florida State, meanwhile, still seeks their first ever trophy in program history, as we watched a couple guys just not show up for them, including Ramondre Knox, who didn't have much to show for himself after those quick baskets he got out of the gate. Gil Gatson and Raheem Carter both starred though. So UNLV is crowned college basketball champions here for the first time in Coach Carter's whole career at the college level, but for the first time since 1991. And as we're going to hop into the awards this season, so Denzel Flowers from Rutgers, Player of the Year, 23 points a game from the 6'8 forward. And it'll be another 6'8 forward who wins Mid-Major Player of the Year, Frederick Atkins from Santa Clara. And it turns out it wasn't Coach K who led Duke to the Final Four, it was Oral Roberts' head coach, or former I should say. Kobe Sanderson, Defensive Player of the Year, 2 blocks game over at UCLA. Denzel Flowers, Big Man of the Year. What a season he had. Deontay Culver from our conference, Freshman of the Year in college basketball, led all freshmen across the entire country with 10 points a game. That B- potential, along with that young, energizing core they have. Yeah, St. Louis is going to be legit. Kendrick De Silva is the first-team All-American point guard as we round out these lists. Braxton Modica from Georgia, Denoris Childs, and Denzel Flowers, along with Ramondre Knox, the senior, makes it onto this list. No surprise there. I think he might be the best player in college basketball, even though he didn't show up in the title game. Keegan McClenney from the U, 6'1 point guard, 16 points per game, starting the second-team All-American list. Donovan Gadsden, arguably the best player from our conference. We'll see if he won Conference Player of the Year as well. We see a Bradley forward, D. Meade from St. John's, and Jake Grimes, a 7-footer from Texas A&M. That's your second-team All-American. Freshman All-American, we got Nathaniel Neighbors from Stanford, Deontay Culver. No surprise there, as he led all freshmen across the country in scoring. Rob Sykes from Louisville moved down to the U. We got Casey Drake, a 6'8 freshman, and Darnell Blanton, a 6'8, 216-pound center from Illinois. So looking over at the conference awards now, obviously Charlotte, a little bit disappointing in March, but they still were the conference champions and their head coach of the year, but a lot of changes coming for Charlotte, so we'll see if they can keep up that success. Javaris Grimes wins Conference Player of the Year, 16 points, 6 rebounds, almost 3 blocks. Great line, but I do think Gatson was snubbed. Deontay Culver, obviously Conference Freshman of the Year now. That's just a drop in the hat compared to the nation's best freshman. As we look at the all-conference teams, we see Johnny Winbush over from UMass as the point guard that earns first-team all-conference. 15 points, 4 assists from him, 16 and 2 from Gatson. And we also see Kennedy Veasley sharing the sugar here on first-team all-conference, joining his Temple teammate. I'm glad he is gone. He was a thorn in our side for the last couple years. Felix Reinhardt, also 16 points per game, as he's the power forward here on first team all conference, and Javaris Grimes will round out first team. Second team got Andre Bright. I always thought he was a really underrated point guard in the conference, and the only freshman to make it on either one of these lists. They give Culver the benefit of the doubt. Scott Polite from Xavier, 12 points. Nathan Lutz from the stacked Charlotte team, and Jere Calloway, 13 points per game for the 79 overall sophomore. Now, freshman all conference, we got Zach Yates, 7 points, almost 4 assists, pretty impressive year over at George Washington. Then we got obviously Deontay Culver, and that's not even all that impressive when you look at the rest of his resume. But Deontay Culver is not the only dazzling freshman on St. Louis. Josh Puente is also on this list. Steph Baptiste and Terea Snell, 2 big guys from George Washington, round out freshman all conference. As Coach Carter's contract has now been renewed for 2 more seasons, you're starting to see the progression slowly yet surely. I know things looked really bleak last year, but I think we have a direction, especially with how much these players have improved. But we're saying goodbye to 4 seniors, which means we have 4 scholarships to hand out. 1 already allotted to junior battle, as we take a look around the conference to see who else graduated and who else we won't be facing anymore. So starting with George Washington, they got 2 starters moving on, Jihad Best and Casey Zeski, 2 very talented players. LaSalle graduates 5, including Kobe Frazier, Jack Adifi, who killed us twice last season. UMass has a whole slew of players, including Johnny Winbush, Deverick Castle, that's their starting backcourt right there, Akeem Finnegan, and also 6-man Cole Pledger as well. So they're losing plenty of depth, both in the starting 5 and on the bench, as UMass moves on from Andre Bright and Taylor Conley. That's 2 starters for them. Richmond misses out on Travion Flowers next year. That's a starter gone. St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies, of course, they'll be saying sayonara to the Conference Player of the Year. Lonnie Rhodes hangs it up after a very coveted career at St. Joe's. And St. Louis, they don't miss anybody too crazy. They're still pretty young, very talented, but they will be losing Martise Lindsay, a starting caliber forward who will be transferring to Liberty. Pretty interesting move there. Gotta wonder what's going on with the Billikens. I know there's a lot of young guys there. I don't know if something happened there to make him want to transfer, but Donovan Gatson and Kennedy Veasley, along with Braylon Ellison, 3 starters moving on for Temple. Tim Bolden graduates from Xavier, and the 49ers missing out on 5 very talented guards, and the best one being Khalid Marshall, who led them in scoring this year. So I think Charlotte has a good chance to be very, very good again, but they're going to have to do it without some of their guard depth. Dayton Flyers, how about 2 starters for them? Tracy Augman and Brian Zollner. Duquesne misses out on Jameer Curry and Ian Paolini next year, along with Felix Reinhart, who was 2nd team all conference. So that's 3 starters as we round out that section of the offseason. And we'll be putting in a attribute point for teaching for Coach Carter. As we head into the meat and potatoes of this offseason, we head into recruiting, as we desperately need a good recruiting class to continue the rebuild. I know we've seen a lot of losing over this 2-year series, but this is where we've consistently been losing in the most in this series. And it's evident that Coach Carter can develop the players he's been given, but some big recruiting wins along with that development skill, and we could have something special brewing here in the Bronx, especially with a kid like Kai Hendry at the top of the board. We have 1 signee in Coach Carter's former player, the 3-star big man junior battle, along with 3 scholarships, all allotted to different prospects as we highlight them now. And I feel like if we hit on Hendry and maybe 2 out of the top 3 stars, I think this will be by far the best recruiting class of this series. We've been in an absolute dogfight with Seton Hall throughout the entire season for the 4-star point guard Kai Hendry. I know we've talked a lot about him this episode, but it's all worth it to try to secure his services. But it was only after the early March Madness exit for the Seton Hall Pirates where we saw Hendry put us number 1 on his board, which shocked me. After all the rotten recruiting luck we've experienced over these last 2 years, it might have been repaid back to us with this news. A top 50 ranked prospect is unheard of in this series, and Henry would be by far the best recruit on paper to play for Coach Carter ever, UT Martin included. He has the upside to be a franchise player if he puts in the work. How sweet would it be for Coach Carter's first ever 4-star signee to hop aboard our program while we're on the upswing? Prospect number 2 is Bennett Pinkala, someone who, like Hendry, we've been trailing on the entire season. I think Pinkala is an underrated prospect, and I'm shocked he's not a 4-star prospect as well. He has the upside to be a top rebounder in the A10. He knows where to be at almost all times and almost never misses opportunities inside the paint. Sometimes when it comes down to you, a smaller school versus a power conference team in a recruiting battle like this, the best thing you can do is hold out. St. John's or other major conference teams deal with not being able to make their scholarships stretch down to these skilled 3-stars since they draw plenty of interest from 4 and 5 stars. I know it may look like your battle is in rough shape, but you can't hurt to hold out like we are. I mean, as long as you have a backup plan, which we do, I think you'll be in good hands. So just like Kaya and Bennett, our third target on the board, 6'7", Craig Stone is in between 2 schools as well, Mercer and Fordham, with both scholarships invested at 100%, with your Rams having the slight edge. Craig Stone projects to be an immediate impact player on offense. He's 6'7" with a lot of length, an ability to score inside and out, and apparently A- potential. There's lots to like about Stone, whose second priority is to stay close to home, yet has Fordham over Mercer, a smaller college in his hometown state of Georgia. This is a prospect we would have missed out on in season 1, but you're starting to see the buzz around Coach Carter and his progress and the player progression here at Fordham. So Henry, Pinkala, and Stone secure our 3 remaining scholarships, with backup option Stevie Mouton sitting on the outside looking in on our board. If we had another scholarship, there would be no debate. The 6'1" point guard from Atlanta would be in line to join the team easily. But with Hendry having 4 stars next to his name and the roster desperately needing extra front court depth, our final scholarship goes to Craig Stone, which is a shame because Mouton is going to be a very solid player from day one. I do really want him. He would give us a flavor we don't have. He's a hard-working 2-way guard who would be the best perimeter defender on this team from the jump, and he also possesses a great handle. Stevie Mouton will immediately receive a scholarship offer if the first 3 targets don't commit, and it's very possible as we trail on Pinkala still while we're tied with an opponent for Stone and Hendry, so you never know who may not pull the trigger with Fordham. Our 5th and final target is Courtney Valentine, a 6'5" wing from Brooklyn. We had a huge lead on him to begin the year, but due to Coach Carter not really keeping up with it, he kinda fell back on us a little bit, along with the emergence of guys like Hendry and Stone. We've kind of faded Valentine over the course of this season, while Fairfield and Hartford now lead the race for him. Valentine had very underwhelming ABL stats, but he does look like a tempo-pushing wing with plush finishing ability. And now it's time for the biggest moment of every offseason. We haven't experienced a lot of memorable times in this section of the offseason so far in this series, but perhaps this is the one that turns the tides. And why not waste any time and jump into the biggest news of the offseason? The Fordham Rams secure the John Hancock of Kaya Hendry. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this news. I was freaking out. For the first time ever in Coach Carter's career, UT Martin era included, he brings on a 4-star prospect. He's top 50 in the class as well. He's a 74 overall as a true freshman with not many holes to his game, 80 plus shooting ratings from all 3 levels, elite on-ball defense. His playmaking and facilitation, they need some tuning, but I like where they're at right now. I expect Hendry to have plenty of touches as he teams up with Murphy and Higgins. There's no reason why he can't gel with them in season 3. And also signing a 4-star prospect is a milestone that gives Coach Carter an attribute point to add to his ratings as well, as you can see at the bottom of your screen. But in the middle of the screen, welcome Craig Stone as well. Coach Carter is 2 for 2 so far, with Craig's skills displayed here. His potential isn't A- like we scouted during the season, but hey, B- still shows his ceiling and his work ethic. Can't lie though, these ratings are a little under expectations. Inside the arc, he looks like he has plenty of skill. He can get to the rim a bit, he takes and makes a lot of free throws, but the big positives kind of end there. He's not as good of an athlete as we thought he was going to be, and some of his defensive ratings are hard to look at, mostly his IQ ratings. A combination of improving his knowledge of the game and getting in the weight room to help on defense could pay off in dividends. A 64 overall freshman isn't anything to write home about ratings wise, but hey, Dustin Black came to campus as a 64 and he was able to do plenty of damage in his first season. Corny Valentine is keeping his talents in the Northeast, but not at Fordham, as he becomes the latest Red Fox at Fairfield University over in Connecticut. I forgot to view his ratings, but in the next video, we're going to take a look and see if we're missing anything intriguing with Valentine's game. But now there's one more scholarship up for grabs, and it's going to come down to two guys. And it's probably the two guys you're thinking of, Pinkala or Mouton. So St. John still has the lead for Bennett, and also hasn't offered Bennett yet, which is pretty interesting. I hope the Red Storm aren't trying to give us some false hope here, because it's not looking very good for us right now in this race. But nothing's changed with Mouton, as I can't offer him until we get a decision on Pinkala, which we hope is soon, because who knows how long of a leash Mouton will give us until he gives up and picks Bethune-Cookman. So as we simulate the next week, we find out more breaking news as we inch closer to Season 3, and it's a big headline surrounding the big fella. St. John's has dropped out of the race for Bennett Pinkala, thus filling his interest bar almost all the way to the top. It's Fordham coming out of nowhere as the lone dogs in this recruiting race. That relief, it washed over me right when I saw the image. It was a great feeling. This was a big man I loved, and all season long we were fighting and clawing just to stay in this race. We even lost out in an out-of-conference game to St. John's, and after that L, I thought our chances were over. I thought, hey, he saw us get beat bad by the Red Storm. He's gonna go there. But hey, we tried our luck and it worked out. I guess the Red Storm used their scholarship on another player. And boom, there it is. The Brooklyn-born big man goes across the river for college ball as Coach Carter hits on his top 3 interests. And these ratings look very, very good. 72 overall. That's arguably a 4-star prospect on paper, as his strengths are his inside scoring along with his offensive versatility. Look at this. You have to respect his 3-point shot along with his 59 ball handle. That'll keep him very hard to guard. He won't be a plus defender day one, but he has the tools to become one, as he's got active hands with a steal and block rating near 70. We'll see if his below average mobility hurts him at the next level, but we knocked this one out of the park, I believe. Stevie Mouton eventually receives an offer from Bethune-Cookman, as they have to be very happy to have this guy fall into their lap. I would love to bring him on the roster. He's a 69 overall, turns out, who may not be able to find his own shot at first, but he'll be able to offset it with a knockdown shooting touch and elite ability to shoot off the bounce. And these defensive ratings are also superb. Bethune-Cookman isn't a small conference, the MEAC, and Mouton may be the best on-ball defending guard in the league from day one. It's just crazy. Really wish we could have brought Stevie on board, but it might be better for him to go there for his career, as he'd have to fight for minutes with Kai Hendry and Dustin Black from the jump. But these 3 guys join Junior Battle to make up our 4-player recruiting class here in Season 2, as we find out Junior Battle's ratings for the first time here after we secured his services in the regular season. And I'll say first and foremost, don't let his 64 overall fool you. His skills present a very unique archetype that we haven't really had before in this series. Just like in the movie, Junior is a little bit raw, his basketball IQ is a little low, but his athleticism, game-changing. And that itself opens up a lot for Junior Battle's future on the floor. His impact and paint protection for one, he has an ability to bounce up and down and send back shots. And he also will be able to cover a lot of ground while he does it. He'll be able to put back a lot of shots on the other side of the floor as well on offense. And it looks like he'll be able to out-jump more skilled big men when he battles for rebounds and putbacks and all that stuff. A redshirt season may be in order, but not due to lack of skill or ability. We just want to clear out some playing time for him, but that's a decision for next episode. Right now, it's a 4-player recruiting class as we add our finishing touches. And unlike Season 1, where we had some filler players because we missed out on who we really wanted, everyone we got to sign are legitimate ballers we really craved, and all 4 of these guys, they bring varied and differing play styles. There's a ton of upside from this second season recruiting class, and we take one last look at not only our class, but the other former players coached by Ken Carter at Richmond. Obviously, we got Junior Battle, but Worm signs to VCU, Kenyon Stone heads to UVA, and we're also going to see Timo Cruz, Damian Carter, and Jason Lyle in next season's class. So now the next segment, we're almost done, guys, but to top it all off, we're gonna have our season 3 schedule preview. So we got invited to a College Hoops Classic hosted by 2K Sports at the Lloyd Noble Center. That's Oklahoma. And our first round matchup will be against the Southern Jaguars. So we get a little bit of a tune-up there. And against Bethune-Cookman, that's our home opener, battling Stevie Mouton, as the freshman will make his first appearance in D1 ball in our gym. So it'll be pretty interesting. And he's not the only player that came out this year and is a freshman looking to make an impact. Our first road game is against Virginia, who's likely to be ranked, and Kenyon Stone, a former player. We'll see if he has some playing time from the jump. We'll face the Ramblers of Loyola again on the road. Buffalo and Vermont, 2 winnable games back at home. Hopefully we get more fans out at home this season. At Rutgers, and then we're home against Binghamton. At Drexel, that's going to be a tough game. Robert Morris and Eastern Carolina. So some winnable games, but some tests and out of conference play. And then we open up in the conference against the defending champs on the road, Charlotte, then St. Joe's, who knocked us off in the conference tournament, George Washington, Charlotte, LaSalle, St. Bonnie's, the Richmond, Duquesne Dukes, Rhode Island Rams, at Xavier, Richmond, at St. Louis, at George Washington, Dayton, UMass, and at Temple to close out our season on March 5th. And the ABL, of course, we want to get a preview of next season's recruiting class. But as you guys know, if you're familiar with the series, I have a recruiting special right before each season, so that's going to wait until next time. So I'm going to wrap up this off-season video today with the ABL AAU recruiting special, highlighting our recruiting class heading into season 3 as the next video in this series. And then 2 videos from now, we'll be tipping off our season 3 debut preseason tournament. So I'm very excited for that. And I'm ready to be back, guys. I know it's been a while, but I'm ready to hop right back in, prioritize this series. And at the very least, I'll be trying to get videos up of this series. So our season opens up in 2.5 weeks against the Southern Jaguars. Very excited for that. And much more coming in season 3. Hopefully this is the year where we find a breakthrough. Coach Carter may be feeling his seat getting a little bit hotter, but with a good season, he can eliminate all the doubt. So next time you see me, we'll be recruiting or doing the recruiting preview, taking a look at our 10 targets we are interested in for season 3. Very excited for that. And I'll be wrapping up the road to NBA 2K soon. And this is College Sports Revived signing out. Hope you guys enjoyed this long episode. I had a fun time putting it together. So I'll see you guys in season 3. Fordham basketball is looking up. You can't lie. So I'll see you guys then. Take care. Have a good night.